Let's say you're a game developer and wanted to make a gacha game, so you do it and advertise its most compelling and interesting parts, which are the characters and combat. Everything is going great, your first closed beta test was well received, and for the second beta test, you wanted to showcase more of the other aspects, like TV, more arcade, and most of the release patch story. Surely everyone will love it, right? Drama farmers and everyone that followed the hate waves aside, I think that Zenlesszonezero CBT2 was quite successful. The changes made to already existing systems weren't massive, which is a good thing, and we got to see what the developers had in store for us in terms of gameplay variety and depth. Despite tons of feedback about all kinds of things, there was one big problem that stood out and united the fans of this game to criticize it heavily: the hollow deep dive traversal gameplay. In short, it's called the TV mode, since you're controlling your character to navigate across the TV screens to explore the hollows, which are places that you will be spending most of your time in, be it combat or TV traversal, and where you are allowed to use the characters with gacha to get. I won't go into depth about the systems inside of this TV mode, since the scope of this video is to explain why it wasn't well received, not explain itself. Now to understand why, let's see when you use this TV traversal mode. Every mission you take is accessed through the hub world using the Hollow Deep Dive device. Now, not every game mode accessed through this will force you to play the TV mode, but the main and side story along the game's current main end game, which is Hollow Zero, will. Meaning it isn't optional. Do you want to know what else isn't optional? You can skip the story, well, most of it anyway, but you must play the combat in order to progress. Pretty sure no one has a problem with having to play the combat, since the people interested in the game were mostly here for the characters and the combat. This is backed up by Hoyoverse's heavy emphasis on advertising their game with this in mind, so if you're even a little bit interested in this game, it's likely for those reasons. Being not optional is one of the reasons for the hate, but the second would be not having to see or use the characters that you work so hard to get or build. Gacha games in general sell through their characters, so a mandatory gameplay mode not involving any characters is absolutely a red flag. In the story, you may occasionally hear characters speaking, but it's mostly the main character's assistant in the TV mode, so don't get your hopes up too much. Third one would be expectations. Of course, if the TV mode was mentioned and displayed more, then everyone would see that it was going to be crucial to the gameplay experience just as much as the characters and combat are. In marketing, they have to be flashy, and they're a business after all, so this was not avoidable, but by doing this, they were pretty much asking to be criticized by how diluted the juicy parts of the game were. The real problem was them not having a reason to exist in the first place. This was somewhat solved when the endgame mode heavily integrated the TV mode for buffs and debuffs, changing up how you approach combat in certain team comps, but by the time people got to this stage, they were all tired of how much of a chore it was to get through meaningless and unfun TV exploration of the story. The puzzles were an annoyance at most and an inconvenience at best, while the rewards weren't all that fulfilling. It having almost no influence on combat didn't make it any better, hence it was a meaningless system until it eventually got better. Not everyone is into the lore and story of the game, so it being optional made sense, but players now had another hurdle to get through before they could play the part of the game that they were excited about. I mention this because at the start of the game, combat is too easy, and stages would go by really fast if it was just combat and story, which I would prefer since they could always implement the mechanic after the players were done with the story where TV becomes impactful. Having everyone do TV directly alongside combat, and it's sometimes taking longer than the combat itself, made people think that they were just wasting their time and not getting any enjoyment out of their early game experience. This seems like a huge quit moment for many players, and I would love to see it getting a change, like introducing its more meaningful form, so the players have a reason to care and interact with the system. And it should not be inside of the story either, until later chapters when the game gives more freedom or it gets changed severely to make it comparable to combat in terms of satisfaction. Many beta testers said that it gets a lot better, or at least bearable, later to the game, which is exactly why something has to be changed about the TV in the early game experience, for this game to be more intriguing for everyone wanting to try it out. because the game is actually pretty good. It's just gatekeeping itself with a mechanic that shouldn't be there or should be introduced later. I seriously believe that this will matter a lot when it comes to the release of the game, where a lot of people will judge from the early game experience, and right now, it could use some work.